Early tonight, a massive rebuke of President Trump when it comes to the president's plans to reshape the midterms for Indiana, rejected tonight by his own party. The state Senate today voted down the effort to redraw the congressional map to go from 7 Republican, 2 Democratic seats to 9 Republican seats. This is part of President Trump's grand plan to try to hold on to control of the House of Representatives next year with all these unusually midterm redistricting efforts from states all over the country. The final vote tally in Indiana was 31-19 against the new map. 21 Republicans banded together with 10 Democrats and rejected Trump's will for 2 more Republican-leaning seats, even as lawmakers have continued to face threats like this from the conservative lobbying group Heritage Action, a big ally of President Trump. Quote, President Trump has made it clear to Indiana leaders, if the Indiana Senate fails to pass the map, all federal funding will be stripped from the state. Roads will not be paved. Guard bases will close. Major projects will stop. These are the stakes, and every no vote will be to blame. Hashtag pass the map. This is a more stark version of what Republican Governor Mike Braun has alluded to in past interviews, referring to, quote, consequences of not working with the Trump administration as tightly as we should, unquote, and Indiana perhaps not being the first call when it comes to federal benefits. President Trump himself has leveled threats to oust the Republican dissenters, writing last night on Truth Social, quote, anybody that votes against redistricting and the success of the Republican Party in D.C. will be, I am sure, met with a MAGA primary in the spring. I want to bring in Republican Congressman Marlin Stutzman from Indiana. Congressman, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. I know you're in favor of the redistricting map that just failed. House Speaker Mike Johnson just reacted to the vote moments ago. Let's take a listen.
Disappointing to me, but as I've said all along, whatever the maps are that are presented by every state, I have to win those, and we will. So I guess that's a disappointing outcome in Indiana, but there's about 14 states at some stage of the process now, either litigation or redistricting, so we shall see.
I know you're disappointed. I know you supported the map. Yeah. What do you think this means in terms of President Trump and his ability to get Republican officials to do what he wants?
Well, I think, first of all, that the Indiana Senate is kind of a different animal, more or less, because you had the Indiana House that supported it, Governor Braun, Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith, both of our U.S. senators, and the entire Indiana delegation supported it. The Indiana Senate has had supermajorities in the state Senate for years, for decades. And to me, I served in the body for some time. There's a different leader there now than when I served. State Senator Rod Bray is the pro tem. They are, frankly, they haven't faced really tough challenges since the Mitch Daniels era, when we had to do some reforms in the state to get our state back on track. So to me, this is a team vote. This is one of those where it's like, you know what, this is the Republican Party, we're sticking together. And, the Democrat Party, they're doing the same thing in their states. I think it's unfortunate overall that this is even part of the conversation that we're having to have, and that policy decisions are being made over the redistricting efforts. But there should be some sort of national standard, but there's not. And that's why I'm really disappointed. I think it was a terrible decision.
So do you think, as Heritage Action suggested should happen now, that all federal funding should be cut from Indiana? Do you think that you should not have money to pave the roads in Indiana? You shouldn't have money to fund the guard bases in Indiana? Because that is what the administration was suggesting. Presumably you now support that.
We have a lot of projects that we've been working on in Indiana. And look, we know that, just like in business, you work with people who work with you. And, President Trump asked for this. Mike Johnson, Speaker Johnson, he put a ton of time making phone calls. There was pushing, pulling, and some of the excuses, there was no good excuse that I heard other than this just breaks precedent, or the president was being a bully about it. This is politics. This is hardball, and we're playing softball. And so my belief is that, you know what, he's going to look at Indiana and say, look, we want to work together, but I need your help, and the state Senate failed to help today.
So you think that Indiana should not get federal funding anymore?
No, I think, that it makes our job harder as a delegation here. Now, he's going to look at states like Texas or Florida or Ohio, Missouri, North Carolina, states that are moving ahead and saying, we're going to make sure that the House Republicans have the support that they need to be sure we hold the majority. I mean, Al Green, he already filed impeachment articles today in the House. That's what's going to happen as soon as Democrats take control of the House of Representatives.
Al Green has been filing impeachment since you and I were in the cradle.
Once Akeem Jeffries is Speaker, there will be even more of that. And so, but no, I mean, I hope not. I want to work with the president. I want to make the case why it's important to invest in Indiana. Indiana has a lot of good things going. Unfortunately, we just don't have a state Senate that sees the big picture and understands the national implications of this.
Is it not possible that they do see the big picture and they think that your state is not entirely Republican and it should have some Democratic representatives, as is the case in other parts of the country that are blue states, but there are Republican representatives?
Massachusetts is a great example, and this is the one that I've compared. We're as Republican in Indiana as Massachusetts is Democrat. It's been 9-0 in Massachusetts for decades. And so we've always just kind of accepted the fact that New England is just a Democrat part of the country. Well, in Indiana, we are a Republican state. You could have a kindergarten class draw the maps in Indiana and be 9-0. We have protected congressmen like Andre Carson in Marion County for years. The seat up in Northwest Indiana is probably more of a swing state, a swing district. We might be able to win that with the trends because people from Chicago are moving into Northwest Indiana. But at the end of the day, this is a team, a team sport. We have to stick together. And the state Senate in Indiana decided not to do so today.
Indiana Republican Congressman Marlin Stutzman, thank you so much. Thanks for coming over to our studio. Let's go to CNN's Jeff Zeleny now to break it all down. Jeff, thanks so much. 21 Republicans voting against the wishes of the president. Why did they feel emboldened to do that?
Well, Jake, in a word, a lot of it turned on local concerns. That was clear throughout this 3-hour debate this afternoon. They clearly were not pleased by the fact there was so much outside pressure here. But listening to this debate, just as senator after senator talked about how local concerns in Indiana actually outweighed this out-of-town push, if you will. And the congressman was talking about the districts, how they're drawn. I mean, we heard some very specific arguments from members about how their local constituents just simply were not interested in drawing the maps. Listen to Republican Senator Greg Good explain his loyalties.
I love and appreciate the President of the United States. Most importantly to me, I appreciate and love and listen the most to the residents of Clay, Sullivan, and Vigo counties. Collectively, I serve them, and they are my priority.
So again, there was just not a groundswell of support from actual voters in Indiana for this push. So that was one of the reasons. The other reason is the strong arm tactics backfired. There's no question about that. There were threats of violence, a lot of swatting for these members. But Jake, the roll call vote is so interesting because a majority of Republicans voted against it. I've been speaking to Indiana Republicans in the last hour, and they say that is by design. Effectively, some of these other Republicans may have voted either way, but they're giving some of the Republicans who really were out there some backup, if you will. So yes, the White House, the president have threatened to primary some of these members. The reality is a lot of them aren't up until 2028. Some are up next year, so we will see if any of these primary campaigns actually develop. But there's no doubt a threat from a primary from the White House is not as effective as finding a local candidate to run against a respected state senator.
It's worth noting that this is not the first time a Hoosier Republican, amidst a Trump pressure campaign that included threats of violence, has stood up to President Trump. Vice President Mike Pence comes to mind in 2021. What does this say, though, about President Trump's hold over the Republican Party at this point in his presidency, when so many Republicans are afraid that the midterms are going to go the way of the Democrats next year?
Jake, there is no doubt. We have not seen this in the last decade, that President Trump's hold on the party is simply not what it was. His threats simply do not ring as real as they used to be. Now, there's no doubt this is still his Republican Party, but there is example after example of Republicans standing up to him, and this is the biggest one yet. It's a rebuke of him. There's no doubt about it. He got personally invested. The vice president did too. J.D. Vance went to Indiana at least a couple times to make this argument there. But behind the scenes, former Vice President Mike Pence very quiet on this behind the scenes. I do not know if he was working this quietly, but Mitch Daniels, the former Indiana Republican governor, was very outspoken against not redrawing maps. He thought it's not the good thing, it's not the right thing for democracy here. So look, the reality is Washington does not run everything. These state senators answer to their voters.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.